Hello all, I'm Kundan Vyas. I'm a part of Oracle Integration Product Management team. And I'm going to be talking about file server, which is one of the core functionalities of Oracle integration. So here's the agenda. Let's quickly go through this. I'll cover some of the challenges addressed by file server, followed by a quick summary, and then cover various features, use cases, and some of the details of file server enablement. And then I'll get into the demo as well. But before getting into the file server details, let me just walk you through some of the challenges addressed by file server. Most enterprises, small SMB or large enterprises, are oftentimes in need of an FFTP server or some type of file server to host and exchange data with their trading partners or vendors or suppliers. And just like any other software, there's typically an operational pain associated with hosting and managing an FFTP server as the footprint grows larger. So the good thing is file servers, that's a part of Oracle Cloud. It will be managed by Oracle, hence customers will not have to worry about maintaining it regularly on an ongoing basis, right? And then while APIs are a modern way to integrate systems, file-based integration pattern is still a very popular way to integrate multiple applications. Hence, most enterprises are still looking for like a file storage capability which can be used for file-based integrations. So since file server comes out of the box with an Oracle integration, enterprises can start building file-based integrations without having to worry about hosting a file server. And lastly, since most FTP servers are based on Linux, oftentimes configuring and managing multiple users can become like a difficult task as the users grow over a period of time. The good thing is that file server comes with a powerful web admin console, which allows administrators to manage and configure a server, users, groups, and their permissions very, very easily. So those are some of the challenges amongst of many, which will be addressed by file server, over a period of time as well. This gives a quick overview of Oracle integration, which is a strategic iPaaS solution from Oracle. Right? It provides an end-to-end solution to connect, extend, and automate your business processes. It comes with multiple core capabilities like app integration, B2B process automation, low-code app development tool called Visual Builder, integration insight, and all that. And today we'll be covering a functionality called file server, which is very much one of the core capabilities. So let's look at what file server really comprises of. At the core, it is essentially an SFTP compliant repository to read and write files. It is embedded within Oracle integration, and the bundling includes like free storage of 500 GB per service instance. It has a web admin console to manage server, users, group folders, and permissions. File server also leverages the same identity store associated with Oracle integration. So the users are stored currently in Identity Cloud Service. And it provides two types of authentication, right? Username, password-based, and OpenSSH key-based authentication. So those are this is a quick summary. Let's just go through some of the slides because I really want to spend a little more time, showing you the actual functionality and show you a quick demo as well. So this is really the SFTP server, which is bundled within Oracle integration, provides you a way to access files through SFTP. The file storage is per service instance, as I was mentioning. It has 500 GB per service instance, and you'll see that the console actually gives you some visibility into how much storage is occupied by the customer. And as you start filling up that storage, it starts giving you alerts and warnings as well. You can manage your server, the file server, from the admin console. You can start and stop it. You can configure it by setting things like timeouts, idle timeouts. You can primarily configure the default home folder for users. So it would be, if you want to configure something like /home/users as a prefix for most of your users, followed by a username, you can define what that would look like. So typically you can configure which folder would a user land into when they log into file server with their respective accounts. You can also configure the authentication type right there. So we have the ability to manage users and groups right from this console, and I'll show you that actually within the demo. You can do quickly things like either enable, disable access for users, configure their default home folder. You can upload a public key for them. All those kind of things can be done from this console as an administrator. So this is primarily, a good chunk of this functionality is primarily for actually administrators to come and manage the file server, the console part. You can create custom folders. You can manage permissions on these folders all through this console, whether it's the users folders or custom folders which are created. Essentially, the interface for managing permission remains the same. It's a very easy way to just bring up a UI and add users to it and specify, just check and or uncheck your read write options or delete options or permissions on it. So it's basically a core set of SFTP permissions or standard capabilities which you would typically expect, but in a nicely more UI friendly way, is exposed within file server so that users can, administrators can manage it more easily. There are multiple connectivity options. Admin console is one option. You log in through that. It's primarily for administrators to go in there and manage and configure your server and users and groups and folders. You can also use an SFTP client to connect to the backend. And of course, I think the more important one is connectivity from Oracle integration, where there's a bigger value. So essentially, you can use currently the FTP wrapper within Oracle integration to connect to file server. So I'll show you that as well. We also have REST APIs. Our core capabilities within the console, which you see, admin console, they're all built using this REST APIs. Customers are welcome to use those REST APIs. They're public. If there are any use cases for which they have to use it in a custom way, instead of doing the same operations from the admin console, they can do that. There are three main use cases here, I think, as we talk to our customers. Right? The first one really is SFTP server lift and shift. This is really a scenario where our customers who are currently running any type of SFTP server on-premise and are looking forward to move to a managed service in the cloud, then I think this would be a good option. But primarily, this use case, we would typically look for customers who are also involved with some sort of an integration project. We would be focusing more on customers who have some sort of a digital transformation use case going and for which they need to automate their business processes, and they have an integration use case in picture where they want to use a file-based integration for that. So those kind of use, and if they have a SFTP server used currently on-premise for such a scenario, then I think those kind of customers we recommend them moving their content to the file server within OIC, because that'll be easier for them to manage. The second one scenario is where customers really want to, share the files and content with their trading partners, vendors, and suppliers by creating accounts for them. And currently they do that through their on-premise or cloud-based system. So we encourage them to consider file server with an Oracle integration. Again, I think typically any sort of a trading partner scenario would also involve a B2B use case or an integration use case based on a file-based integration pattern. This is where those customers will find it easier to adopt file server, because it's a managed service. It'll be easier for them to rely upon that. Number third is integration for customers who are primarily using SaaS applications. It's very common for SaaS customers to have some sort of a scenario where they are exporting data in a file-based format in a bulk way. So they're oftentimes looking for an SFTP server or some sort of file storage where they could temporarily store the data before it's processed and transformed and sent over to the destination. This is the third use case as well, where file server could be kind of useful for those customers, right? So those are three. I'm going to quickly walk through some slides here, and then we'll get into the demo. First of all, the file server is available only in Oracle Integration Generation 2 onwards. Whenever you get an instance which is a Gen 2 based instance, the file server is not enabled by default, because I think we imagine a lot of customers may not have scenarios where they would want to use it directly. So we give that choice to them as to enable that when only if you need it. So you can do that with an OCI console. You just have to log into the console, and you should be a user who has a manage access within OCI console, so you can get to the service instance details, and then there you can find an option called enable, and then you click to enable your file server to basically prompt you for a dialog where you just give the confirmation and just move forward. And once the file server is enabled, it will show you a status called enable within the service instance details like this. So that's just a quick set of screenshots, a quick overview. These are the links which points to our documentation also and the REST APIs. So you might find it handy to go through that. Okay, so with that, I'm going to get into the demo. So this is our homepage, and I'm hoping most of you must be familiar with this environment, or if some of you have not seen this product before, then this is our homepage, and you'll find these core functionalities here, which I've been talking about. I'll not go into each one of them because I'm going to focus on file server today. But essentially, the way you get to the file server is you get into settings, and then you'll find a menu called file server. File these 3 pages here. So let's go to the settings page. So this is really the page where, first of all, actually, let me just highlight one thing before I miss out. The file server menu is going to show up primarily for the users who would have access to a role called service administrator within Oracle integration. So it's a OIC role. So if you want access to file server and the administration capabilities around it, then you have to assign yourself, or someone has to grant you basically a service administrator role. That's when you'll see that menu. Okay. And then in settings, this is really the place I was talking about. You can see a few things. You can see the health of the system. You can see the amount of storage occupied per service instance. As the storage starts filling up and it's about 90%, it's going to give you a warning. And if you actually fill up the storage by occupy all the 500 GB, then it's going to you will not be able to upload any new content, but you can continue to use the existing content for your read and updates and all that, as long as it's within the storage limit, right? You can stop and start your server right from here, configure idle timeout. This is the connectivity information. This is the IP address and port you'll use to connect from either your SFTP client or from your Oracle integration FTP adapter. And then a couple of other things. This is really where you would set the permissions for your, this is sort of a global permission configuration where you can define um, what sort of permissions should users have who actually log in with a certain account. What kind of folder path would they have? And if you configure them to use the default home folder, then what sort of permissions would they have? So you can control this as a super admin here, right? And then the next level of permissions would also be at the folder level. So this is more of a universal level control of permissions. Same thing for the groups. And then within security, basically, there are some configurations, primarily this is where you can come and configure your authentication type, whether if you username, password based, key based, or both, right? So that's really the settings page. In users page, you would see, first of all, these users are the ones which are actually within Oracle Identity Cloud Service, which is associated with the Oracle integration. So you don't have a separate user store for file server. It's the same. So, but essentially you'll see that when you come here, all the users here are in different states. Some are configured and are enabled, some are not yet configured. So this is really the UI where you can do a bunch of things where you can configure the users and also the groups. So let me just expand a little bit on an existing user who's already configured. So this user, John Snow, is configured. He's enabled, which means that the user can log in. It shows some summary information, the user, another user group this user is a part of, and what kind of permissions this user has, and those kind of things, right? So let's just go through an experience of configuring an existing user who's not configured already. So A Stark, Arya Stark is actually an existing user, but who's not being configured. So you click on edit icon, and which brings up this side UI, and where you can choose what sort of configuration you want this user to have. Whether it's going to be a default home folder, or do you want this user to inherit a folder path based on the group this user is a part of, or possibly a custom folder, right? So we just got to choose a default home folder path here. That will be home, users, and the username. That will be the path the user will get. This is where you can also upload the key, a public key, which can be used for a key-based authentication, right? So let me just come out here, say successfully configured A Stark. So basically at this point now, A Stark is ready and is configured and enabled to access file server through its own account. So I'm going to actually try and show this through an FTP client. So let me bring up my FileZilla. So here is a instance which I've created, added within the site, and then you would see that there is I've configured a SFTP protocol, and this IP address and port is the same thing which you see in the settings page, right? And this is the username and password. So let me log in as A Stark. So once you log in, you would see that you would be expecting this user to connect as a through a default home configuration path. So the path would be home users a start. If this user was configured to inherit a group folder, then I think this would become a different path altogether. So this is really how the login would look like. And from here onwards, the user can do all sort of all sort of operations, typically what are allowed based on the configurations done in the admin console. Like if I allowed a start to rename the folder or delete a folder, all those things can be possible from here as well, right? So let me go back here quickly because I really want to move a little more faster and then show an integration. So this is the folders page where you can do create a custom folder, and you can actually get into the home folder is created by default. So this is where you'll find all the users and their respective home folders, right? And so let's just come back here to the root. I want to show you the permissions real quick. So let's just pick any folder. If you click on permissions, this is how you typically go and add permissions to an existing folder, and you can bring up a set of users and then select the users you want to add, and then it'll automatically populate them here on the left side, and you can choose what permissions you want them to have, right? So that's just a quick experience of the folder there. Let me come out and move a little more faster. Okay, so that's pretty much what the UI is from a admin configuration perspective. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go to integration to just show you one thing very fast. So the connectivity, what you've seen so far is the admin console, and you saw the connectivity from SFTP client. I want to show you connectivity from Oracle integration, right? So here is my simple integration, which actually picks a file from a standalone SFTP server, which is running on our OCI compute, and it moves it to the OIC file server, which is embedded within Oracle integration, right? So I want to quickly show a connection. This is the connection which is based on the FTP adapter. So this is how you would typically, the way you would connect to file server is just like any other SFTP server. You would put an IP address port. You'll say SFTPS, right? Because it's a SFTP-based connection. All other things are optional. You can, of course, explore them, but here's where you can choose your username, basically type of authentication you want to use. We only support, file server only supports the access policy, which is based on username, password, and the key-based authentication. The third one is not supported currently with file server. So you would put your username and password here, and I think this would be the login you would use. So that's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to go ahead and run this integration. But before I run that, I just want to show you what actually it does very, very quickly. Right. So it's a very simple integration here, right? It's essentially reading a file from a standalone SFTP server, which has a folder path called home, user to, all the way input files. And this is the file it's going to pick up. And then it's just going to write it to home users a star Pepsi, right? So this is actually the path it's going to write to, which is our embedded file server. So pretty straightforward. Let me just come out here. And run this. This is pretty much my last part of the demo. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is an integration which is based on schedule orchestration. So I chose to run it immediately. This is the integration which I just submitted. So it says that it succeeded. So I'm going to get into the details of that to see what it looked like, right? So it looks all green. Basically, for the people who are not familiar with this really shows the path of the execution of the integration. So it's showing that everything is green. Every step was green. Essentially, someone who's not familiar with the activity stream, it actually gives you a little more verbose detail about what actually happened. And essentially here it's supposed to write a file. So home users A star Pepsi, right? So that's where it's supposed to write the file. So we can go and verify if it's done that. All right, so airline dot, so it looks like it's written the file. It's 10:39 here. It's 10:38. So it's exactly the same timing. So it just got updated. So that's pretty just a simple scenario. It just shows you how to read a file from any source and then write it to the embedded file server, right? So that was the third type of connectivity. So I think that concludes my demo. I'm going to actually stop here.